They're not only far more democratic, they're far more, make more sense in it because they have some built-in humanity. It is easier to go and claim someone else's system and install it in your country than to look back and see, I had a system before these people got there. Let's see if that system has anything to offer me. One of the main reasons why African civilization was destroyed by whites deliberately, so that you can forget what you were before they came, is they must install a system that makes you dependent on them. Another reason it wasn't reclaimed by our intellect, because most of our intellects are intellectually lazy, and because they were trained by Europeans, they are afraid to challenge the Europeans who trained them, and they're afraid to contradict them. What we have to do in the long run is to sit down and take a look at where we went wrong, not only in claiming our civilization, but claiming our revolutionary heritage. That was another thing worthy of being called a civilization. We have been in revolt longer, more consistent than any people on the face of the earth. Why are we cringing after people who came out of a thawed-out icebox in Europe shooting babies in the back? If we were brave enough in the Caribbean islands to launch a series of slave revolts that lasted over 100 years, the same thing in the United States, then in Africa, anti-colonial revolts that outgenerate some of the finest minds of Europe, and we have good reports on this. One of the best reports came from a young English reporter named Winston Churchill. There's a book called The River Wall, dealing with the British reconquest of the Sudan. Why haven't we made the best use of religion, and why haven't we made some separation of the revolutionary content of the religions of Africa? Why haven't we looked at the black side of Islam? Because most Muslims, I don't know a single black scholar who is a Muslim who is a scholar of Islam. No, you want to understand what I said. I don't know a single black scholar who is a Muslim who is a scholar of Islam. I know a bunch of blacks who are Arabists and following that bunch of degenerates as though they were a people. And they were slave traders before Islam, and they still are. Most of the enslavers of children. I have never seen a single black who was a Muslim who would dare discuss the invasion of the Western Sudan in 1591 and the exiling and the destruction of the great scholars at the University of St. Khoury at Timbuktu, and most of these scholars were Muslim, including the greatest of them all, Ahmed Baba. Won't discuss it. Won't talk about it. This destruction from North Africa by the Arabs against the African Muslims in the Western Sudan, Muslim against Muslims, made it possible for the slave trade to spread inland. After 1600, Africa's doomed. was a sealed and delivered fact. Because in North Africa, you had the last aspect of the Ottoman Empire, the Mamelukes. In East Africa, you had the Arab slave trade and the Portuguese meeting the Arab slave, forming a partnership, destroying African civilizations there. In West Africa, you had the Portuguese and the Spanish and subsequently the British. In inner West Africa, you had a destruction coming from the north, led by the Arabs and mercenary soldiers from Spain and parts of Europe. Later in South Africa, you had the Boers, and the Boers subsequently pushed the Africans who had originally welcomed them. Then the British came and pushed the Boers pushed the Zulus pushed back. Now you got wars all over Africa, and these wars are in destruction of African civilizations. You got Muslim revolutionaries that most Muslims know nothing about. Muhammad bin Abdullah Hassan in Somaliland fought for over 20 years, pushed the British out of Somalia.